The movie My Brothers begins with our hero Steve, whose dream is to enter the city's mine. However, as we see, children are prohibited from entering the mines. That's why he waited until he grew up and then returned again. He distracted the guard and entered to dig and search until he found 2 cubes hidden in a corner. He placed them together, and a large gate opened in front of him, leading him to a new world called Overworld. He was left with his mouth agape at the creatures living there. As you can see, all of them are cube-shaped. In this world, he can build anything he imagines in his mind, like towers, giant buildings, and even a small house entirely made of sheep's wool. Our hero decided to live there forever, and luckily for him, he wasn't alone, because he befriended a villager named Dennis. They lived for many years, spending all their time playing and building, until one day they stumbled upon this mysterious structure. Steve completed it, and a large gate opened, leading them to a dark world called the Nether. There, they encountered creatures called Piglins, and as you can see, they are led by a villain named Malgosha. Due to Diana's cunning, she stole their precious cubes. The cubes that she plans to use to take over the overworld and turn it dark like her own world. But Steve wanted to fix the mistake he made, so what you saw was his dog being rescued from captivity. They got the cubes and tried to escape. Realizing he couldn't do it alone, he entrusted Dennis with the task, giving him the bag containing the cubes and asking him to take it to his home on Earth. Indeed, Dennis managed to escape, but the hero Diana was captured again by the Piglins and imprisoned. We have someone who managed to escape to Earth and hid the cubes in Steve's house, specifically under his small mosquito net. On the other hand, we will get to know Gareth, who is known throughout the city as the trash guy. He owns a small shop where he sells video games, but he hasn't paid the rent for 3 months and is about to be evicted. His only hope to earn some money is to try his luck at the public auction where they sell forgotten items. Mr. Janishan went to a garage where he found a box of a game. He recognized the game as valuable and decided to buy it at any price. The bidding increased with other people until he actually managed to buy it for $900. But as you can see, the box was empty. He found only 2 cubes, the same cubes we saw with Steve at the beginning. Then they sold him the items, because this year is long and he is absent. Absent because, as we saw, he is still imprisoned in the Malgush prison. We will meet Natalie and her brother Henry to see their journey to their new home. Natalie will work in the potato factory, and she helps her brother with the drawings she creates and improves them for inventions. Then, they reached the broker's office, and the broker, whose name is Hada, told them, "We also accommodate pets." From the conversation with the broker and Natalie, it is clear the girl and her brother lost their mother and moved here for a fresh start. Henry set up his gadgets, placed pictures of his mother, missing her. He walked past Gareth's shop. They entered the chaos and played with the games that were there and with the blocks that were found in the storage garage. They got to know each other, but Henry was in a hurry and left to go to school. The city school, which is notorious throughout the country as the worst school in America, is attended only by the less intelligent, unlike the prestigious school of Natalie and her brother. Yuri brought his new friends his invention called the flying backpack. But as we see, someone secretly cut a wire, and as soon as he activated the invention, it actually worked and sent a dummy into the sky. Meanwhile, Natalie had started working in the potato factory when suddenly the faulty invention intervened, causing a big disaster. The teacher ran away from there to avoid taking responsibility and left Henry to be called by the principal. The principal asked him to call his guardian, but the boy was afraid to call his sister, so instead he called Karis to help him out of this problem. The man agreed to come to the school in exchange for money, and as we see, the drama unfolded at the game store. Here we see at that moment the invention notebook in the trash, but he tries not to cause himself any trouble. Later, he sees the cubes that are still connected and decides to stack them together to see what will happen. The light increased and they ran in one direction. As for Katufa, she was upset because he didn't return from school, so she gave it to the only person she knows in the city, named Saradon, who came to see what was going on. She gave her cooperation to find Henry, and they found his location using the GPS on the phone and found he was playing in the abandoned mine of the city. They went there to bring him back. Henry was following the cubes that led him to the mine, and Tebam went with him because he had nothing else to do. Then they entered the mine and found the big gate, the gate mentioned in the introduction, leading to Overworld. Natalie and Dawn caught up with them. Natalie started scolding her brother and asked him what he was doing there. At that moment, the gate pulled them all in, and after a short while, they found themselves in Overworld. They remained in awe of the beauty of nature, the mountains, and the strange animals that lived there in that place. They went to explore the area. Meanwhile, in Netherworld, the Piglins were still gathered around Malgusha. Malgusha discovered that someone had returned the cubes to Overworld. Instead of freeing Steve, she sent him to bring them back. Naturally, Steve agreed to help her, but he went to find his friend Dennis, who was sitting by himself, to go and retrieve the cubes for her. She was tired and didn't want to delay, so who would she send? The Piglins to get rid of him and his dog. We returned to our group, who were still searching for the portal that would take them back to Earth. Suddenly, darkness fell upon them, and fear crept in when they started hearing the sound of wolves. They were reassured by Karat, who seemed ready to protect them, but he changed his mind when spears began to rain down on them. Run! Get out of there! Escape from the skeletons that suddenly attacked them. As we see, Karat fell into a pit, while the others fled from the skeletons, chasing them on giant spiders. They miraculously escaped in the ruins, but Henry dropped the cubes on the ground and had to leave them there. Fortunately, someone built a tower to hide from skeletons. Meanwhile, Karat, stuck in the pit, dug and found a tunnel. He exited and was startled by a creeper. The creeper in the place exploded on him and threw him to the ground, landing him in front of a large group of zombies. He ran away from them towards the rest of the group, and the blocks that had fallen on Henry were removed, but the skeletons broke one of them. As we can see, the portal connecting to Earth was captured. Mr. Tar left the broken part on the ground and fled with the other part to the tower where the rest of the group was. They rescued Henry from the zombies and he went up to hide with them, but at that moment, a creeper arrived to explode on the building, allowing the zombies to reach the group that was fortifying themselves. At that moment, Steve arrived and easily got rid of a large group of zombies, while the small group that remained all died, burned and turned to ash by the sunlight. The group was stunned by Steve, who introduced himself and asked them about his dog Dennis and the cubes they were carrying. Gareth told him that he bought them from an auction, and they asked how they could restore the Earth. He explained that it was impossible to restore it until they gathered the cubes, combining this cube with the others that were broken. He explained that they might find it in a building called the Woodland Mansion. But living there are dangerous creatures, and if they catch them, they will certainly get rid of them without mercy. Our group is forced to go and take the cube there because they want to restore the Earth. Even Steve agreed to help them in exchange for handing over the cubes to him, as he promised to give them the potion to save themselves from the Piglins. The group began their journey, which would not be easy, and their first stop would be the Meat Pork Village, a small village inhabited by peaceful people and giants. Steve took them there to pick up the weapons they would use for the mission, but then they went to eat at the village's restaurant where they cook chicken in volcanic baths. Gareth was hungry and started eating voraciously, while Malgusha called one of her fighters and sent him to spy on Steve, who had betrayed her trust. She knew he was going with our group to the Woodland Mansion and asked the fighter to get rid of them all and bring her the cubes. We hope that Tali asked Steve about the location of the Woodland Mansion, and he told her that it was beyond the mountains near the large mushroom forest. He then went with Henry and Gareth to gather the weapons, while the rest went to buy the map that would lead them to the Woodland Mansion. Indeed, Steve had hidden a large collection of weapons and showed them explosives, rockets, high-speed vehicles, and even swords of all shapes and types. Then they needed all these things to fight the monsters that inhabit the Woodland Mansion. At that moment, Gareth stumbled upon a blue orb and was told that this orb could teleport. Unfortunately, he only had one, and as you can see, Gareth accidentally lost it. Steve was supposed to take them to give them a crafting table, but they weren't supposed to place the items and turn them into weapons. Gareth was outside again, looking for the table they would use like nunchucks. Meanwhile, the heroes were missing one of the members. Let's return to the girls who went to get the maps, so they could, of course, take the map that would lead them to the Woodland Mansion. But at that moment, the fighters from Malgusha arrived to attack the village with their giant airships. They aimed to get rid of the sword and its companions and bring her the cube. Gareth came out to them with his buckets. Buckets he mistakenly used to hit the sword, leaving them buried in the ground. Naturally, he couldn't defeat the Piglins, unlike Henry, who started shooting them with the gun he crafted. The girls were behind the drum fans. They armed themselves and stood to defend. Cart was still holding her stick, and fortunately, a village giant saved them just in time. Meanwhile, Steve finally recovered from the shock and followed them down the mountain. As we see, the girls couldn't mix with them and had to escape on their own, one in one direction and another in a different one. They indeed left the edge of the mountain to escape, then fled with the flying egg that Steve had in his pocket. He asked them to escape towards the mountain in front of them. Cart stayed in place with Henry to ensure he could attack. This hero managed to start flying in the sky, followed by Cart and Steve, who used a single device. They didn't waste any time and headed to the mountains to escape the piglins chasing them. They blew up the balloons and barely escaped, but Henry lost control of the suit and crashed into them. Henry nearly hit the ground, but they managed to save him, and because of them, they avoided the fall at the last moment. We hope for the girls who managed to escape from the piglins, but as we can see, they couldn't reach the maps. They were able to walk and search for the woodland mansion without a map, because Steve had told us about a request that came after the mountains near the mushroom forest. At the same time, Steve began to recount to our duo about the plan of Malgusha, who wanted the cubes to take over the overworld. Of course, Steve wasn't going to give them to her until she took over the overworld, as she would turn them into shadows like Nader and Wald. They continued after the woodland mansion paths, where Steve told them there was a welcome ahead of them. As for the fighters, they returned to their boss Malgusha. Malgusha, who got rid of all of them mercilessly, then assigned another fighter with the task to go and get rid of Steve and his friends and bring her the boat cubes. We return to the girls who were also heading to the woodland mansion. As we see, they were getting rid of zombies along the way, but at that moment, a wolf appeared. The wolf turned out to be Dennis, Steve's pet. Dawn had an idea to use Dennis to catch up with the rest of the group. Indeed, the wolf started sniffing Steve's scent and led the girls, pulling them to catch up with Diana's trio to enter through the mountains to save time. Unfortunately, at that moment, they were caught by the very skilled fighters of the Malgusha who were supposed to capture them. They managed to escape into a cart, which led them to end up in a room full of creepers, the strange creatures that explode if you hit their heads. The three of them started fighting them to try to stop the piglins. Indeed, their plan succeeded, as they managed to escape just in time. As for the Malgusha fighters and the piglins, the creepers exploded on them, allowing the heroes of Nanjo to miraculously escape. Finally, they reached the woodland mansion. Steve told them that the building has 3 floors. The first floor is filled with creatures called Vindicators, the second floor is inhabited by Evokers, and the third and final floor is full of treasures. That's where they might be able to find the second cube they are missing. That floor is guarded by creatures called Endermen, and it was decided that Henry would handle them. Meanwhile, Garrett and Steve went to deal with the Vindicators. The plan succeeded, and the team managed to reach the second floor, but they were caught by the Evokers when trying to ascend to the third floor. They escaped from them and managed to reach the treasure room just in time, a room filled with chests of loot. The hero Dina was determined to get the missing blue cube and sat down to rest among the chests in front of him. Meanwhile, another group appeared to have been captured and placed in a boxing arena. A small zombie riding a chicken was released into the arena, and it began to fight with Garrett, who easily knocked it to the ground. Let's go back to Henry, who was still searching for the cube, turning over the chests that contained only weapons. Finally, he was left with just one chest, from which he indeed retrieved the blue cube that would return him to Earth. However, the boy wasn't going to leave that easily, as suddenly an Enderman appeared before him. Meanwhile, Garrett was still fighting with the small zombie in the arena under the watchful eyes of the Vindicators who were enjoying their time. The small zombie was dealt with, and Steve stepped in. Meanwhile, on the third level, Henry was trying to avoid the Enderman, hit it with a weapon until he struggled but succeeded and secured the blue orb. Now, the hero Diana took it to use in the future and broke the floor, to descend to where Steve was in the arena. They escaped together from the woodland mansion, but sadly, they were ambushed by Malgusha, who came with the piglins over the giant areas. She stole the blue cube from Henry's bag and returned to the portal to activate the cubes and take control of the overworld. The fighters took action to eliminate 3 with bombs, but fortunately, Steve and Henry managed to escape with the airship. As for Garrett, he chose to sacrifice himself to fight off the piglins. In the end, they had to flee and leave him behind because, as we see, the piglins detonated the explosives they were carrying on him. They found Diane, who managed to knock Steve and Henry off the airship, leaving them unconscious until the girls and Dennis reached them. Steve was happy to see his friend, and even happier to confirm Henry's safety. Meanwhile, Malgosha placed the cubes on the portal to, of course, take over the Overworld. Indeed, she took control and turned it into the Netherworld. However, the group wasn't going to let her win that easily, which is why they decided to go and stop her and retrieve the cubes. They passed through the Dead Pork village to craft weapons and gather a large army of giants and wolves. Meanwhile, Malgosha was still celebrating with her people, sending them to gather at Dead Pork village and eliminate the peaceful inhabitants there. But as we see, our group was ready for them. The giants easily took care of Malgosha's army. One of them used speed boots, while Henry used his pistol to take out a large number of piglins. The sword spoke through armor and went straight for Malgosha to strike her. However, it fell to the ground in front of her. Malgosha shattered the armor. She was about to finish it off when it narrowly avoided it. We return to Henry, who threw the teleportation orb, launching cubes above the gate. But the fighter hit Malgosha first. Our hero then was hanging off the edge until Gareth arrived on the airship. Gareth, who appeared to have the explosive device of the tribe. He was even able to destroy Malgosha's gate and knock down the cube boat. The Leganician was in Natalie's hands. The Bedgelis died in the sun's noise. Malgosha weakened and fell before the sword. Steve descended to the rest of the group and went to bid farewell to them and his friend Dennis, who he would let go with Dawn. It seemed that Steve wanted to stay in Overworld forever, but he changed his mind when he saw his friends returning home. He returned with them to the city, and together with the 5 of them, they created a game called Minecraft, which became famous in the city and all over the world.